So, hello, comrades. I am here with Boyan Stanislavski, the director of the Barricade YouTube channel. You can find the link in the description. Hello, Boyan.
Hi, glad to be with you. Hello.
And in the YouTube channel, the Barricade, you can find a lot of videos about the situation in Poland, in Eastern Europe, especially in the time of the war. So I tried that our conversation today, it will not repeat this question which was in this movie, but of course there will be maybe some things which was already said. First thing which I want to say something new. It's a question which I am thinking since a few weeks. It is election in France. I will show
Right.
you. I will show you two slides. First slides. It is the sondage which was made in September. And I am interested about two candidates here. First is Jean-Luc Mélenchon, 8%, and second,
Right.
Anne Hidalgo, 7%. So we have two candidates of the left in France. Anne Hidalgo, for people who don't know who is this person, it is in Poland. We can say that it is a little similar for Robert Biedroń. So
Oh
it
my
is
God.
liberal left. She is now the mayor of the Paris, and she was the candidate of the official social liberal party, Parti Socialiste. It was the
hmm
party which was ruling in France many times, in the time of Mitterrand, in the time of the Jospin, in the
Right.
time of the François Hollande. So as you see, this is egalite. It is 8%, 7%. And
hmm
second slide, which I would like to show you, it's a result of the
Yeah.
election. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, 22, Anne Hidalgo,
1.8.
well, there is a joke in Paris because for buy a ticket for metro, you have to pay 1,9. So and it is 1,8. So it is she take more the votes than the ticket Paris in metro. And why I show you
hmm
this, because when the it is for me it is one of the reason of war in Ukraine, and the position which is very different of Mélenchon and Anne Hidalgo to this war. Mélenchon, uh, here is the program of his election. It is the future, our future. We can translate it, and you can read it here. That when he will be became president, France will be no longer the member of NATO,
hmm
and France will be the normal diplomatic relations with every country in the world, especially also with this country which Western elites didn't like. So he had a lot of photo with Hugo Chavez, with Korea before, with all these South American socialist countries. Of course, also he supported Russian intervention in Syria to destroy the ISIS.
hmm
And in the time of this election, Anne Hidalgo all the time attacked him. You are the Russian spy, you are the Putin
Yeah.
spy. And the result is that more she attacked him, and more he progressed. And especially it's very interesting when we analyze the result in the cities, in the Paris region.
hmm
For example, in Saint-Denis, it is department in the north of the Paris, which is populated mostly by the immigrants from Africa. and Mélenchon have 16% of the vote in Saint-Denis. It's enormous. 60%. He totally
60, not
si-
16.
yes, 60.
Yeah,
Six
okay.
zero, and in many other cities where are the emigration from Africa, it's the same, and it's shown that different how the people who are from Africa, when they see this war, they are not like these leftist from Western countries. So
Mhm.
my question for you is that in France we have two different leftist candidates. One which is very aggressive NATO propaganda,
Mhm.
and second which is a little more like Mélenchon. It
Mhm.
is possible to make the political force like this in Eastern Europe, or in, I don't know, that in Eastern Europe, in Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, can exist the left political force which is against NATO and is very popular.
Well, I guess it could exist, but I don't know about the popularity of it. In a sense that we're in some kind of psychosis right now, right? Like everybody wants to go to war with Russia. Everybody wants to drop the atomic bomb on Moscow. Everybody's hoping, which is the weirdest thing of all my observations. For the last couple of weeks, everybody is waiting for Ukraine to win the war with Russia, which is like this is a kind of mental state that it's going to take a lot of effort to actually confront with the reality sometime later, because every thinking person knows that there is no way for the Ukrainian army to win the war, to win a confrontation with the Russian army. It could take weeks, it could take months, I don't know, but the result is going can only be one. And I'm just talking about the military situation, not about all the political elements that are in the background of Russia launching this invasion and so on and so forth. So, we are right now in a situation where the public opinion is completely wrecked, where any kind of rational thinking is almost absent, where any political agenda other than going to war with Russia is not taken seriously. So, in the short term, any kind of force that would be remotely rational, it doesn't have to be even leftist, does not have, there is no room for such a force in the Polish public sphere right now. Now, I don't think that this situation is going to last long, because it requires a lot of emotional upheaval, and it requires a lot of emotional investment on the part of the population in order to keep this balance, this tension, going, and to keep it active. So, without being a psychologist, okay, or without being a sociologist, without even having a university degree, but from general knowledge, from general culture, I can say that such a state of emotional tension can only last for some time. It can last maybe for a couple of months, maybe for a couple of weeks, I don't know, but afterwards it will just have to start going down. And I'm afraid that this implosion is going to be very difficult for the Polish, and it's going to take a huge toll on the Polish public opinion, because not only will you have to wake up like as if you were drunk, for example, the night before, so the hangover is going to be terrible, but also you're going to have to face the reality. So it's not that you're just going to have this hangover where people have depression and anxiety and don't feel well in their stomach and in their head, but you're also going to have the reality, like things are going to be going completely in a completely different direction, in a completely different way than what you were told they were going. So I think it's going to be extremely difficult. But I'm trying to be optimistic about the small things. Like every situation which requires every situation of shock, okay, which the one that I just explained will definitely be, carries some potential for some kind of development. Like when you get the population shocked, something could happen. You don't know what it could be, but some trends, some thoughts, some reflections could be born and could become popular that that the left could lean towards and maybe, you know, exploit them in order to create some kind of leftist, progressive, rational, most of all rational platform. Now, whether this is going to happen, I'm not sure, but I want to believe that it's possible. And in abstract terms, because the question you asked seems to be somewhat abstract in a sense, is this kind of thing possible in Poland? I think it is possible throughout the region of Eastern Europe, but it is only possible under one condition, which is the left activists that are part of this active minority, okay, on the left in all those countries of the former Eastern Bloc. They have to reinvent their kind of their sense of place in politics. So far, the situation has been pretty much ever since I can remember, and I've been in politics since 1997. Pretty much ever since then, the Eastern European left activists have been trying to mimic, to repeat things that were delivered as a sort of model by the Western European left. And the thing is that, you know, Europe is not the same. I mean, Paris is not the same as Warsaw. Sofia is not the same as Madrid, and Amsterdam is not the same as Belgrade. Like, you know, there are certain differences which then were translated into politics many times in history. And the fact that it's exactly those countries that belong to the former Eastern Bloc is not just, you know, the effect of the decision of Yalta, Tehran, and the other conferences at the end of World War II, but it's also an expression of certain, you know, patterns of historical, cultural, civilizational, even if you like, development. And this is something that has to be taken into account. That is, the Eastern left has to start acknowledging where they are. And it has to start acknowledging that the methods, that simple mere repetition of Western standards, Western talking points, Western ideological trends that are popular on the left right now are not going to work in our countries. And it has been proven time and time again. You mentioned Robert Biedroń and you compared him to this Hidalgo, sorry, forgot her first name, Anne, I suppose, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, like she got 1.8%. Like, what is it? This is like, you know, let alone that for the West, it's a terrible, terrible, horrible, absolutely humiliating defeat for a traditional socialist party to come up with a candidate who gains 1.8% of the vote. It's not a defeat, it's a catastrophe. Okay, it's obliteration. And we had our left, you know, in Poland, which is where I reside currently. In Poland, Robert Biedroń, you know, a guy who was supposed to be the hope of the modern left and was supposed to be the kind of, you know, the leader of the cool guys, cool people in Poland, right? Because he's gay, he's modern, you know, he's got all the features. I don't know whether he's vegan, maybe, but you know what I'm trying to say is that he's got all the features for, you know, the petty bourgeois kind of obsessionists to follow him, right? Like if you want to be cool, if you want to be the kind of, you know, the kind of element of the society which is supposed to be attractive to the middle class, you know, and stuff like that, then you should be him, right? And he was the presidential candidate, and they were hoping to get all those people around him. In 2019, that all happened. They were hoping to get all those people around him who are exactly modern, pro-Western, pro-European, pro-whatever, and they were hoping that those people, this segment of the Polish society, will overwhelm the backward, you know, the kind of the traditionally oriented, the Catholic, you know, whatever believer Christians and so on and so forth. That they will be able to lead Poland into, you know, into this modern world of Western civic liberties and liberal democratic order that some confuse for the left order. But this didn't happen. He gained something like 2 points. I don't remember, 2.3, 2.4. You know, I mean, it was a horrible, terrible defeat. Okay, again, and you know, the problem that I see with the left here is that they never learn from this. There's one defeat after another, and it's constantly being ignored. Like they hope that everything that has failed over the last 15 years is finally going to bear fruit, and they're finally going to get it, and they're finally going to win, because I don't know, maybe they think that sometimes at some point in time, the society in Poland, the electorate, the whatever, the working class, the middle class, that they're going to finally recognize their beauty and their political sophistication. And so far, it hasn't really happened. So look, theoretically, to answer your question, I think it is possible. Practically, whether it's possible, I really don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic about it, because if it does not happen at some point in time, then we are at the mercy of the right wing. And unfortunately, we are not at the mercy of this right wing that we know, which is like, the civic platform, Donald Tusk, people with nice suits and great ties, and being very cultural and being very sophisticated, and with, ties with the European Union and with the West in general. No, we're going to have those crazy people. Okay, like we're going to have Kaczynski, we're going to have Ziobro, like two probably of the two most unhinged leaders, okay, of the currently ruling party. Or we're going to have like even worse people, like those that form the so-called Polish Confederation, which is like a bunch of crazy people, like either some sort of libertarians or monarchists, or like really really weird right-wing elements, weird even by our Eastern European standards. So I'm trying to be optimistic, and I want to believe that it all depends on whether we finally start to enter into some kind of dialogue with reality. If this doesn't happen, then I just don't quite see where the whole thing is going. And for the moment, unfortunately, and if I want to be serious, I have to say that for the moment, the left, particularly since the 24th of February, it seems to have gotten much more deranged, rather than getting rational, like in our country here in Eastern Europe. Like you have seen, probably you and your viewers have noticed that, the Polish, the great hope of the Polish left, the so-called Razem party, together, that's the translation of its name in English. This party has left the DiEM25 movement, the DiEM25 International, led by Yanis Varoufakis, and had made it with a lot of spectacular statements and actions, because Yanis Varoufakis apparently wants peace with Russia. He criticized the invasion, but he said that Ukraine and Russia have to sit at one table and start discussing the issues between them, because otherwise the whole thing could start falling apart, meaning the world economy. And that was for them, that was already somehow pro-Russian, or I don't know, not pro-Ukrainian enough, or I don't know, not pro-Western. I'm not sure what it was, but they thought this is something so disgusting that they had to depart from his organization. By the way, I had no idea that this organization even existed anymore at the time when the whole thing happened. So they kind of reminded me of it. Like in a sense, DiEM25 hasn't been doing much, and so what I'm trying to say here is, like, we have to stay sane and we have to stay sharp if we want to get anywhere. And for now, it doesn't seem like in Poland, at least, we're going anywhere. So again, I'm trying to be optimistic, but it's difficult.
Okay, so I would like to ask you a question, I think, about two subjects which are our favorite subjects. One is the first subject. It is the accident of the plane in the Smolensk, which was happened 12 years ago. And also we have some kind of the competition of the victims. It's very, very popular in the Western left, all this. And For the our people who are not knowing Poland, I need to repeat that there was a crash of the plane in Smolensk. It is in Russia. With the Polish president, and Polish government since 12 years make a lot of things to push the Western countries to believe that it was a terrorist attack of the Russian,
Yeah.
especially of Putin and Russian FSB and stuff like this. Now, when all the Western politicians are in love of Vladimir Zelensky, and
Zelensky. You should say Zelensky because the letter Z
uh,
is
Ah,
criminalized. So Zelensky.
yes. Now I see that there is a little competition of the victimhood of the in part of Jarosław Kaczynski. That they see that the Ukraine is the biggest victim of the Russian, and it's not true because all the people in the world know that it is not the Ukrainians, it is the Polish people who are the biggest victims of the Russian criminalities. Do you believe that now in all this Russophobia in Western countries, all this hysteria, that the Western politician will take this version of the Jarosław Kaczynski, and when they will speak about all the crimes of the Putin, they will
Little
see
add this.
at Smolensk.
Yeah, well, again, I want to be optimistic, and I'm hoping this doesn't happen. But quite honestly, when you look at the Western world today, and when you look at everything that the West has been doing politically, if this is politics anymore, I'm not sure. But politically, the political decisions that they have taken, plus the media, psychosis, it's way beyond hysteria. It's like some kind of collective psychological meltdown. What's happening in the Western media. And I think it's a reflection of the West psychological problem. Like the West has been in charge of what's been happening in the world for the last 500 years, and now it seems to be confronted by Eastern powers like Russia, China, hopefully India, and this is something very exceptional, and this is something very difficult for them to confront with, like on a psychological level, because they really perceive themselves as the only people with the specific moral, political, civilizational features to be the leadership of humanity. And I'm sure it's very difficult. I kind of even feel sorry for them. Like, the whole world is sort of falling apart. The whole perception of world and humanity and everything is just falling apart in their heads and before their eyes. And that's why they're reacting in such an irrational manner. I think it's also, for the West, I find it extremely disturbing that they react in such an emotional manner without, a pinch of reason, and that they are prepared to shoot themselves in the foot, or I don't know, in the head, maybe sometimes, judging by the magnitude of idiotism of their decisions. That they are willing to do that just because they are emotionally disbalanced. It really seems to me that something is wrong, to say the least. And to be completely honest, there's just nothing normal left for me anymore in the West. Like when I look at what they're doing and how they behave, and all their actions, it's on the one hand it's disappointing, on the other hand it's disgusting, and in other aspects it's just so shocking that it's it's difficult to think about and to reflect upon. I mean, it's something incredible. So look, I want to be optimistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if at one moment this idiotic concept of Vladimir Putin having assassinated 96 Polish politicians, or 98 was it, in 2010, I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes mainstream at some point. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear all the von der Leyens, Timmermanses, Scholzes, and other European bureaucrats, which are supposed to be those great European leaders, that they start talking, they start using it as a talking point, or at least floating the idea that something like this could have happened, and maybe they would, I don't know, call for some kind of independent investigation, quote unquote. I'm not sure, like I'm speculating here, but I think that if they do something like that, then it would be completely logical, provided their behavior and their reactions so far, which are unhinged, stupid, politically bad, and those people, they should go to jail for all those things that we as European citizens are going to have to endure because of their idiotic decisions. That's my political and moral assessment of the situation here.
Okay, now I would like to ask you about this guy in front, the Zelensky.
Zelensky, yes.
Zelensky. From the logic, for people who are new politics and have a little analysis, who is this guy? He's the guy totally invented by the Russian oligarch, especially this guy on the right, Kolomoisky.
Yeah, he's Ukrainian oligarch, not Russian.
Yes, Ukrainian, and with Jew origin.
Yeah. He's
Yes,
Jewish, right? Yeah.
yes. But it's not important. That important is that the guy is one. It is not a political activist who created his own party program. He was political active many years. No, one day the media of Kolomoisky decided that he will become a president. After he became president, in the time when he was president, it was the scandal of the Panama Papers of Zelensky and the other scandals. Recently, the biggest scandal of Zelensky is that he pushed all the corporation in the world to broke the economic ties with Russia, but he didn't stop the gas who are going from Russia in Ukraine to Europe. So he used this argument that if you have if you trade with Russia, you are giving money to Russian army. But he all the time the Ukrainian Naftogaz, Ukrainian Naftogaz, all the time the gas is not stopped by Ukraine. So it's a big hypocrisy that he presents himself in the French Parliament. And he said, the French corporation, Leroy Merlin, Auchan, Decathlon, Total have to stop economic ties with Russia. And he did not stop his economic Ukrainian economic ties with Russia. But how you explain this, that all people in the Western countries are in love now in Zelensky, and the people from the left, they are in love that you can't, if you criticize Zelensky today, you said something about you are I don't know, Russian spy.
Oh yeah. Well, look, I'm used to that. Okay, I've been despite the fact that I have been against Putin's policies on many fronts back in the end of '90s and the break of the century, and I participated in many demonstrations, that were against certain political decisions that he had taken back in the day. Despite all this record, I have been one of the first people in to be smeared as Russian agent or Kremlin agent or something like that, just because I spoke the truth about international politics. So I don't even take it seriously anymore. Like, okay, yeah, Russian spy here, Russian spy there. Like the whole world consists of Russian spies and people who are looking for Russian spies. I mean, this is what it looks like. I mean, the perception of those people actually entertaining this theory is that they're like the world is full of Russian spies somehow, and at the same time, the very same people, The very same people say that Putin is inept, Putin is stupid, Putin is like, I mean, they call him all kinds of names, and they describe him as one of the most incompetent politicians in the world's history, and how clumsy he is, and how all his actions are, like, for example, now the war in Ukraine. There was this idea floated a couple of weeks ago that he has taken this decision on the basis of some post symptoms of COVID that he apparently had undergone. Like, the same people are trying to describe him as John Hannibal Smith from the A-Team and MacGyver together, and as, like, I don't know, one of the clumsiest, I don't know, come up with any clumsy character in popular culture, and he's supposed to be that too. So, like, those people, they've got like very dialectical, okay, in inverted commas, very dialectical view of the world. Like, you can be the very opposite at the same time. So, I don't take it seriously. Like, okay, go ahead and tell, you can tell all, you can smear me as Russian bot, Russian troll, I don't quite care. Now, and to the point that you made, why are people so deranged? And why is it that everybody is now in love with Zelensky? Well, that's very simple. Because the media tell you to do that. Like, you have to be, the media syndicate, I'm talking mostly here of the so-called media of repute, Western media, international media, those that have those that can be a reference point for this Western public opinion, that is, for the public opinion in Western Europe, for the public opinion in Canada, in the United States, maybe Australia and Japan. So this is why the whole thing is happening, because the media, they have this kind of attitude that they teach people, and they have been teaching people that for decades now, that history starts like 15 minutes ago, and they go back only in history only if there is something that suits their current narrative. Otherwise, like, all those things that you said about Zelensky, is that, that he's not a politician, that he's a puppet in the hands of one of the oligarchs in Ukraine, that he has no party, no platform, he has no idea of politics at all, that he's a good actor, and that, now he's sort of using his acting skills, all those things, right, which basically should dismiss him as any kind of politician. He should be out of politics. He's got no idea. He's just a puppet in the hands, not even of Kolomoisky anymore. I suppose that it's the Americans who actually are running the show. Totally politically and militarily in Ukraine right now, that any person that is thinking in insane and reasonable manner about politics, about international politics, should dismiss this guy and should call for his absolute immediate resignation, because all the calls that he has been making in various parliaments around Europe and the world, in his public statements, calling for more weapons, more more military support, and so on and so forth. This is something absolutely tragic and catastrophic, because the only thing that it will do, and everyone who's thinking, who stayed sharp in this psychosis, knows that any tank, any artillery unit, any weapon smuggled to Ukraine today means prolongation of war, more blood spilling, and more atrocities, and more death, and more destruction. And that's it. There's nothing else that it will bring about. So for me, this is absolutely, I find it to be morally and politically impermissible to be to demonstrate any admiration for Zelensky. But as you said, as you pointed out, rationality is not commonplace today, and we will have to wait, I'm afraid, until this emotional upheaval, until this this emotional spree that people are on right now, until it just falls off. And maybe then some people, some portions of the public opinion will start thinking, and will start to see through that. Now, there are two two options, in my opinion. One is that people are just going to be so tired with this emotional upheaval that they're just it's just going to naturally start falling off. Or the other thing is that when Russia launches its major offensive, because we should not forget that Russia has so far not launched any major offensive in Ukraine, and once they do that, which I think, but it's a speculation, is going to probably happen within the next couple of days, maybe in the beginning of next week, and once the Donbass cauldron is finished off, like the Ukrainian units that are caught in that cauldron are finished off, and once Zelensky is forced to sign some kind of humiliatory defeat, capitulation, I don't know how things are going to go, then this will also probably have the kind of awakening effect for some, not for all, obviously, because emotional intoxication is something much more powerful, obviously, than I thought before. But that's the situation. My explanation for this is the role that the media have played, which is extremely toxic, extremely lifeful, extremely dangerous, and is part of what the media have been doing for a long, long time now, which is wrecking the public opinion and making the active minorities in society, in various societies across the Western Hemisphere, to descend from reality, to detach from reality, and to just focus on whatever your imaginary interpretations and concepts about certain situations could be. So that's how I see it.
I would like to remind that before Zelensky, there were a lot of other heroes in these countries, which were supported by the West. And why, for example, Yulia Poroshenko, she was a prime minister of Ukraine, and after she go to prison. Mikhail Saakashvili, he was president of Georgia. After he have to go out from
after
Georgia.
The Revolution of Roses. Yeah, you remember that? There was Revolution of Roses in Georgia that brought him to power. That was long ago.
Yes, but now he is in Georgian prison. But before Georgian prison, he was in Ukrainian prison also.
Yeah. So, and before that, he was a member of the Ukrainian government.
Yes,
I don't know if you remember that. Like, it was in 2015, I think, or something like that. And that was very cool because, all those Ukrainian government officials that were so anti-Russian, because they actually accepted him as part of the government or part of the, I don't know, institutional order in this post-Maidan
No, he
Ukraine.
was a mayor. He was a president of the city.
Yeah, president of the city, whatever. But he participated in governmental meetings, and because of his participation, the governmental meetings had to be conducted in Russian, because otherwise, like, they wouldn't be able to communicate. So this was an absolute absurd. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm digressing.
So you see the Tymoshenko prison, Saakashvili prison, Poroshenko. He also needs to go to prison, but because of war now it's stopped, and
now the prisoners are let out.
Yes. So what is say us to this about the Ukrainian politics, about all these heroes of which are loving by the West, that after they are going to prison, and what will be the future of the Zelensky also?
I have no idea what his future will be. I'm guessing that once things change dramatically in terms of the war situation in Ukraine, that either he will finally he will be taken somewhere, I don't know, to Paris, to London, to Washington, and he's going to have a long and happy life, giving lectures for huge sums of money in this university, that university, this company, that company, like all those retired rogue politicians. They have their careers, their pensions, and so on and so forth. So either that, or, which I think is also a possibility, but again, I don't know. Like, I'm just guessing on the basis of my own observations. Or he might, be in trouble in Ukraine, in the sense that when things start to get really nasty for him, really bad for his government in Ukraine, then maybe the remnants of the far right forces could, for example, take down his government in Ukraine, and they could carry out another coup. And then he's in trouble. Maybe he would go to prison. Maybe he would be tortured. Maybe he would even be killed. I really have no idea. I'm just like, this is pure speculation. Or maybe, maybe he will be somehow protected by this guy Ihor Kolomoisky, who is one of his handlers, right? And whatever agreement Kolomoisky strikes with the Americans, regarding their future, because I understand Kolomoisky wouldn't be able to stay in Ukraine either, like depending on the outcome of this war. But I can't quite imagine that they would be, once the war is over, that they would be free to just walk around in Ukraine and not be prosecuted. So it's difficult for me to give an exact prognosis, like where is Zelensky going, and I don't think he even knows precisely where is he going with whatever he's doing right now. But I also don't think that it depends on him. Like, in a sense, you asked, what about the future of politics in Ukraine? Well, there is no future of politics because there is no politics. I mean, where is politics? Politics, in a classical sense of the word, is that you have representation, political representation of different social groups in the political spectrum, in government in general. Okay, to put it in very simplistic terms, like, where are those representations of all the groups? Where are those groups? Where is the responsibility? Where are those interests articulated? This doesn't happen. And it's not only the Ukraine's problem, it's a problem throughout our region. And again, this speaks to the Western understanding of politics and Western concept of liberal democracy and how it all should function and why it doesn't function here. And I could speak about that for an hour at least, but this is another show. There is no future of Ukrainian politics in these circumstances, and there was no future really from the beginning. I mean, since 2014, it was obvious that this situation of increasing conflict will finally have to be resolved one way or the other. Now, my guess at the time was that the war would probably begin in some, 3-4 years from now. But it happened now. So, already from 2014, we knew that there is no future for this project, that Russia will not agree to have, a NATO political and military outpost at its doorstep. It was obvious that this isn't going anywhere. So I suppose that back then a plan has, but again, it's a speculation. I don't know. I'm thinking that back then, all those Newlands, Blinkens, all the hardliners in Washington, they thought, okay, there is no future for that project, but this project, as depending on how much money and energy and all kinds of resources we pump into that, we will weaken Russia, because the stronger our military and political anti-Russian outpost called Ukraine is, the more resources Russia will have to invest in order to destroy it, and the more weakened it's going to come out of this confrontation. This is so they already designed it back then in a way that there was no future. The only future was the conflict, which finally occurred. And as I said, I thought it would happen later, but this is the future. This is the manifestation of their will. And after the war is over, and whatever is left of Ukraine, however this state is going to function, I really have no idea about what the end game here is going to turn out to be. After this, the designers of the new order in Ukraine, the new political, social, whatever, cultural, even if you like, order in Ukraine, they're going to be coming from Russia, most likely, or I don't know, maybe from Donetsk and Luhansk, but that's it. So then, you know, Ukraine will be completely redesigned, and you know, it depends on those designers in Moscow that are going to be responsible for sort of recrafting the Ukrainian state, on whether it's going to have future or not. Now, you know, I know the Russians have some very smart people who could run this show properly, but whether they will be appointed to do that, I don't know. Judging by certain big mistakes the Russians have made over the past couple of weeks, and by, you know, appointing very incompetent people at like, you know, this Medinsky, for example, who is in charge of the Russian delegation of you know, the talks with Ukraine that are taking place in Turkey. He's a horrible idiot and totally inept and very stupid bureaucrat. Like, to appoint this person, you know, you know, to have such responsibilities, this is a major mistake. And you know, to have invested, just to point out another mistake, okay, to have invested so much over the past 80 years in people like Medvedchuk, who apparently has been arrested recently, you know, in military uniform. I don't know whether it's really true. Like, I doubt everything that comes from Kiev. But you know, to have invested in him, like to have believed that he will bring about some kind of pro-Russian, you know, trend in or that he could maintain and sustain a pro-Russian trend in Ukrainian politics, a guy who is, politically speaking, a professional loser. He has not won anything, and to still invest our hope, you know, their hopes in him. So, like, what I'm trying to say here is that the Russians have some very great people, but they're not making the right choices in terms of catership, in my opinion. And you know, that's why I want to be optimistic, but I don't know what's going to come out of the whole thing. I'm hoping for the best, but there is no future for sure for for the current for Ukraine in its current form, and for politics in you know, quotation marks, Ukrainian politics in their current format. There is no future for sure.
Okay, I would like ask you about the question of the weakening of Russia, because if we are reading the Polish media, every day we see that the Russian economy is collapsed, that everything is now the Russian army. It's all the time in every battle they are losing, and every day there are 5 generals Russian which are dead and stuff like this. So after 50 days, when you are reading the information that this enemy are weak, are poor, our army is can't fight, there are amateurs and stuff like
Alcoholics
this.
also.
Alcoholics, yes. How it will work for the future of NATO in Eastern Europe, because NATO, it is organization which also always have to have the enemy, and this enemy to be good enemy have to be strong enemy. It is the Soviet Union, it is the terrorist Al Qaeda, it is the Russia, and but the Russia, yes, but the Russia like enemy is good when is the Putin, which is from KGB, which is strong, and because Russia was strong, Poland can all the time buy the military stuff from United States, the Abrams tanks, the F-45 and stuff like this. How now when they see that the poorest country in the Europe, the Ukraine, can only Ukrainian army can stay, not be defeated by the Russia. what will be the future of the NATO? Because all this explanation for the militarization of Europe, it's only because the Russia is strong. If Russia will be weak, they will what? They will create a new enemy, the China. What?
Yeah, I think that. I think you're right here. This is the point I have been making for the last couple of years, that China. Well, Russia is just a training ground. Russia is just supposed to be the kind of kind of warm up for their actual confrontation with China. And this is the real problem for the West. This is also what the guests on our show on the Barricades, which I co-host with my friend and comrade Maria Chernat on our video channel, many guests from the United States that we've invited have said exactly this, that the American ruling class is not so afraid of Russia, because Russia for them is like because of the fact that it's not an ideological country so far. It hasn't been ideological for the last 2-3 decades. For them, it's an enemy that they feel they can engage with, and also they've got nothing but contempt for the Russians. I mean, they really, most Westerners, and it has been the case throughout modern history, they only have contempt for Russia. They think Russians are barbaric, Eastern, Slavic, kind of, backward. They, by the way, think the same about us, about the Polish, about Bulgarians, and so on and so forth. They just don't say that loudly because, it would contradict, the whole story about United European Union and so on and so forth. But of course, if you look at their actions, this is what they're doing. Like, what is the plan? What has the plan been for us, for Eastern Europeans in the European Union, to go to the West and clean their toilets in their hotels, or to change the diapers of their children or their elderly, that's, or to wash dishes in their restaurants. That's the the role they have designed for us, which is obvious after like how many years now have our countries been in the European Union, and that's the reality. That's the situation. But that's another show, of course. Now, as for the future of NATO, it's very difficult, of course, for me to speculate. In short term, NATO is going to be stronger because, they're now floating this idea that Finland and Sweden are going to become part of NATO. And also, the political elites of those countries that are in Europe's east, I think they got so deranged and so unhinged that they're literally doing everything in order to become targets for Russian rockets. That's what they're doing, and that's what Poland is doing with all their expansion of NATO's military presence. That's what Bulgaria is doing. That's what Romania is doing, and that's what Sweden and Finland are doing as well. And I don't know what they're hoping for, that there isn't going to be enough rockets, Russian rockets, to hit them. Like, there will be enough for everyone, believe me, if if the push comes to shove. So it's very irrational, it's very stupid. But in short term, NATO is going to come out stronger and more united and more kind of prepared for confrontation. The question is what is going to happen in the long run. Now, the long run is means mostly poverty for Europe. And Bloomberg ran an article 2 weeks ago, fantastic article. They had to take it down afterwards, and to sort of kind of soften it a little bit. And they had to take it down off Twitter because the headline said something like, I'm paraphrasing right now, but it's an accurate paraphrasation, that the Europeans should learn or get accustomed to or get used to riding on the bus and eating lentils. So this is the future of Europe, pretty much. Like, when Bloomberg says something like this, they probably know what they're talking about. So we're going to have a lot of poverty, which is going to translate to food shortages, electricity shortages, and all that kind of stuff. So our standards of life are going to fall drastically within the next decade or so. The question here, and also from the point of view of NATO's future and European Union's future, if you for that matter, is how are the societies of those countries to react? Now, my prediction, optimistic prediction, again, I'm trying to be optimistic about everything, is that, you know, the societies are finally going to react with the very logical, conclusion, like, what the hell? Something is happening between Ukraine and Russia. That's how they're going to perceive it. Of course, it's not just a confrontation between Ukraine and Russia. It's a great confrontation, the beginning of a great confrontation between the West and the East. And, you know, the confrontation isn't going to end before the Eastern powers finally come on top. But, you know, for the moment, like, people are just going to ask themselves this question, like, okay, Russia and Ukraine are doing something. They're not in the European Union. They're not our problem. Why are we getting involved? And why are we paying with not having, you know, electricity, and with not having bread, or with having bread for, like, I don't know, a kilogram of bread is going to cost 10 euros soon, probably, or something like that, right? So, and then they're going to start looking for some kind of political expression of this, you know, emotion. And if this expression, if this need displayed in that manner is met with some kind of, you know, political suggestions, with some kind of political agenda, then we might start seeing the disintegration of NATO, West, you know, all kinds of problems that, all kinds of divisions, that are going to start appearing. And, you know, the pessimistic element only here is that those divisions and those problems and those expressions of political emotions that are going to be growing, increasing in Western, particularly in Western European societies, but in Eastern European ones probably too, only a little later. You know, they're probably those emotions are going to be consumed by the right wing, not by the left wing. But again, like, I'm trying to be hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic. Perhaps something happens, and in this madness, in this disorder, in this chaos, some things are going to happen that are going to push the left forward, and is going to become the vanguard again of some change. But for now, it looks like the so-called populist right is going to consume all this energy and all this political kind of the conglomerate of new political emotions. And but even if that happens, then I don't think it's so great for NATO or so great for the European Union, because you know, in order to fix a problem, regardless of whether you have inflicted that wound on yourself, you know, whether you have inflicted that wound on yourself or whether it has been inflicted from elsewhere, you will have to make rational decisions. You will have to make some sort of you will have to come up with some sort of comprehensive idea for how to fix the situation that we've put ourselves in. And my feeling is that the current leadership in the European Union is not capable of coming up with any sort of rational plan. I don't believe they're able to do that. I think it just exceeds their mental and intellectual capacity. So then they will react in even more unhinged, more emotional, more childish, more infantile, and of course more dangerous in terms of international politics manner. And the more unhinged they get, the more spectacular the meltdown is going to be. And then those forces, whether they're going to be from the left or from the right, they're going to start coming on top. And, you know, if they are from the right, I'm afraid, again, they will not be able to come up with any kind of comprehensive and cohesive idea how to put all those things together. But nonetheless, the future of NATO and the future of European Union in the long run does not look very bright, in my opinion.
Okay, we are running of the time. If you can quickly say something in the Finnish about the economic situation in Poland when the more than 2 million Ukrainian came
More than
in
3
Poland.
now.
What?
More than 3 million already.
3 million. Because I watched your video, which was, I don't know.
That was 10 days ago. Yeah.
So quick update. What what is the economic situation now in Poland? With it's changing without.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, the economic situation is not clear, really. I mean, we see the steady rise of prices. We see that, everyone can see that, and everyone can feel this. We see, and we have seen over the past 1 year, some desperate movements on the part of the government in Poland, but it hasn't resulted in any kind of, appeasement of the economic problems that keep boiling, and that have not yet, come to not all of them have yet come to the surface. We've seen some very weird decisions, again, to close down, to shut down the imports of Russian gas and so on and so forth, which will inevitably make energy much more expensive. And of course, from what I gather, and I gather that from the mainstream press, there is no way. I'm not talking about like New York Times. I'm talking about places like oilprice.com, for example. There's just no way, technically or physically, for Europe to get independent of Russian gas. Or maybe if there is a remote, very remote possibility, them importing gas from all over the place, like from all over the world, at huge expense that will be unbearable for the European societies. But again, that's another show. So we see steady rise of prices. We see that every day, and all the people in Poland who are not filthy rich, they feel that and they suffer from that. And everybody has to basically be going shopping with with a pen behind their ear and a piece of paper, or a calculator for that matter, in order to not to blow up their budgets. So that is the situation, and it is clearly deteriorating. Like, we can see that we're going, like, we're on a path of constant price hike. But what is going to happen, in terms of whether the government is going to react somehow, whether the government is going to try to bail out some people, whether a major breakdown is going to occur, I have no idea. I can only see that the situation is deteriorating. And I'm sure that once things go off the hook, the government is going to try and tell you, explain that it's all because of Putin, because like everything is the fault of Putin these days. And that's all I can say. Things are going to get worse for the working men and women in Poland and in Europe. But how the government is going to react, except for blaming it, of course, on Russia, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you, Boyan. If you want to say where people can find you in internet.
Oh yeah, well, so I, we run a publishing house in Sofia, which is putting out websites like barricada.org, the barricade.online, and ro.barricada.org. You can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is called The Barricade, and our weekly show is called On the Barricades, which I co-host with Maria Chernat, as I mentioned already. And and you can also find us on Substack, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, so you don't miss out on any of the publications that we put out. And that's pretty much it. And you can, of course, find us on Twitter and on Facebook, which is like, the two most censored platforms these days. But we're still there. Like, we haven't been banned yet. So.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. It was a pleasure to have this discussion with you. I hope to be a more frequent guest on your show.
It is especially today. It's very difficult to find people from Poland who can speak, because some people who before I thought that I can speak now. It's impossible about the big change of the mentality of some leftists.
Mm.
and there are other who are a little scared to speak publicly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know what they are scared of. Like, I mean, come on, it's not the
mm,
Third Reich. I understand that we have a right-wing government and a hardline right-wing government, but I mean, come on, you don't get thrown into you don't get repressed for just saying what you think. Like so far, I mean, this has not been the case in Poland, with maybe some kind of minimum exceptions. But look, I don't believe that. I don't buy that. Okay, like people will tell you all kinds of stories about how they are afraid to speak up or how they are they will find all kinds of excuses. The point behind all those excuses, in fact, the bottom line is they don't really have a coherent ideology. Like, this is the biggest problem on the left today in the so-called global north, or at least in Europe. Okay, there is no ideology around which people would be gathered, and from where people would uh, to to the elements of which people would be referring to in order to develop positions and opinions on certain topics. And because they don't have an ideology, they just they will repeat something that they heard from the liberals, from the conservatives, from wherever. And also because they don't see a place in politics for them other than among the elite, which is the right wing. They feel they have to repeat their talking points at least every once in a while, so that they are recognized as part of the establishment. And now, with this war, they thought, okay, it's our moment in time to cling as strongly to the establishment as possible, because we are also against wars of aggression and so on and so forth. So it's a great moment. We can all be against Russia right now, and maybe if we hate Russia enough, they will take us. They will accept us somewhere as their younger brothers or sisters or whatever, siblings.
uh,
In the political scene. So this is not really a fear of being cancelled or a fear of being repressed. This is a fear of having to think independently, which is something that they don't want to do. That's why in the beginning of the program, I said they need to rethink their sense of place in politics. For as long as they don't do that, they will never succeed in anything than maybe becoming a small party on the fringes of the political spectrum that is just going to be running their own little show somewhere, on the periphery. And I'm not interested in that kind of left. No one should be.
Yes, yes, but I will say one word about why people are scared, because I stopped my activity in Polish language. I ran the YouTube channel in Polish language, and in the first days of the war, when I said that the denazification and it's something which I support. Maybe I'm not supporting the war, but
Yeah.
the objective, the denazification, and there are a lot of problem with the Ukraine, with the Bandera, with Battalion
Mhm.
Azov. Uh, and people from my family, my wife, starting to was attacked in the social media that and because of the family stuff, I
Mhm.
stopped, because
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
impossible that my wife was pressuring, and it was pressuring to me,
Yeah.
and now when I'm speaking only in English, I'm free now that they don't
Yeah,
attack
yeah.
me.
Well, I can tell. What I can say is that after on the 25th or 26th, like 2 or 3 days after the invasion, I had to delete my Facebook account because I wasn't able to put up with this amount of aggression against me. I mean, I was getting weird, angry messages from people that I haven't heard from for, I don't know, 5 years, for example, telling me that I was brainwashed by Putin, and telling me all kinds of nonsense. And well, no one has been threatening my family, luckily. But I thought, like, and not even because I thought that I felt like emotionally bad, or because I felt some kind of emotional distress. I did feel a little bit of that, but I just told myself, like, Boyan, you don't have to confront yourself with this. I mean, those people have lost their mind and they need psychiatric counseling. You can't help them, so you don't have to stay with them in one room, which is Facebook. And let alone that I have been thinking of leaving Facebook, because this is just a place which is like a toilet, or even worse than a toilet, because it retains shit. It doesn't just process it. So I now finally I had this my friends, in inverted commas, have given me this final sort of argument to actually abandon this place and to go and never go back there. So I kind of I feel much happier because of that. And this is like one of the outcomes of the current tension and war, is that you kind of filter your immediate social environment, because when you have friends, when you have like people whom you have gone through certain situations, then they don't just go ahead and abandon you, or they don't just go ahead and write strange messages to you just because you have some differences in terms of how you view international events. Those are not real friends, or if they had been real friends at some point, now they are just deranged people and they need medical help, not social kind of social entertainment. So I totally feel I can totally empathize with everything that you described. I am sorry for to hear that your family members have become points of attack in the social media.
It was not attack that somebody said that I will kill you. It was rather than such things when the atmosphere in my family. It was not, and it is not only question of my wife, but for example, with my wife, it was that. But you support Putin? No, I am not supporting Putin. I am against war. But if we are speaking about war, there was today, now we have war in Yemen, we have war in Palestine, we have a lot of something like stuff like this.
Syria.
Before we have Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. You are speaking about the economic sanction or going to nobody have sanction against Western countries in the time when there was the Olympic in the London in 2012 and Great Britain have occupied Afghanistan. Nobody care about this. And I said about the refugees that 2,000 refugees in which came from Syria, Kurdistan, in the Belarusian border, they were treated like rats, like disgusting. Worse. And now everybody love white Christian refugees from.
And everybody, no one has a problem with it. No one has a problem.
Yes, but the problem is that it's when you speak something which is different than the version in media. You are it's something wrong with you. What is the problem? Why you're and
well, you would have to actually, I was thinking about having a program with some expert in social psychology to kind of explain to me how why this propaganda has been so effective. But that's a major problem. Like, it's very difficult to talk to anyone if you have a different point of view. So it's a situation which is very comfortable for the government, for the establishment, okay? But for us, it puts us in a very difficult position. Like, I often have these discussions with the co-host of the program, of our podcast on the Barricades, with Maria Chernat, and she says, like, I sometimes have to, talk to people from our team, or we have to talk in order to just maintain, balance, to just make sure that, that everything is okay, in a sense that you have very little options to speak up, or to speak publicly, or to speak to someone you don't know, or to even speak to members of your family about your views and opinions about the current international situation. So I really feel that one of the things that we have to do as an international community of sane leftists is we should just stick together for as long as it takes for this mental global mental breakdown to start falling off. We really have to stick together because, we are under so much pressure and the propaganda machine is so strong that, in order to just stay sharp, to just, stay rational, we should stick together. We should have those discussions on various channels, various programs, various places, even without recording, even without publishing it. We just should have our community. And I by the way, perhaps this is another optimistic element that could, be floated at the end of the program, at the end of our discussion. There are many groups, informal groups, formal groups, that are organized in different manners, in different forms, all around Europe, including East and Western Europe, that are doing something. Like, you're doing your channel, we're doing our channel and our websites. Many people all around the place are doing that. And I think that the great challenge for, the immediate future, for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is to try and put those people together somehow. That, that they don't only have bilateral relations, like, for example, you and I, or I don't know, our channel and your channel, to put it in like more organizationally, or I don't know, our channel and theanalysis.news, which is the channel run by Paul Jay, a pretty famous American and Canadian journalist and filmmaker, or between you and, I don't know, Give Them an Argument, that's the podcast run by Ben Burgess, like to try and get to a point where there is an organized network of those people, regardless of, the kind of political differences that they will have inevitably, but that there is some sort of, community built, for people to be able to sense the fact that they are not alone. I think it's very important, politically and morally, ethically, psychologically, maybe even for all of us.
Last words, which I would like to say, that it's very these things which you said is very important. But in France, it is possible not because internet, but because of all this emigration which came from Africa's countries. And people which I am working every day from Mali, from Senegal, from Algeria, when you speak with them about this war, their position is totally different than in Poland. So it's only the question when I spoke with my wife is, no, listen, you are living in France, not listening these people in Facebook in Poland. Try to speak with the people who are here in our district where we are living. And when she understood that the majority of the world are not, it's only Western Europe, Canada, United States, Australia, they are against Russia, but the countries of BRICS, India, which is the party of the member of the NATO of Asia, the Squad or stuff like this. Brazil, which was ruled by Bolsonaro, this is allies of the United States. In this question, all these countries are said that no, we will not put sanction against Russia and stuff like this. So the majority of the population of this planet, of course, maybe they are against the war, but one thing it is be against war. And another thing is supporting all these sanctions. It is economic war. Sanction are pushing people to poverty in the time of the COVID. We see that in Iran, on another countries where without pharmacy stuff, without this medicine, this is sanction go to the dying, and the Malbran Albright are supported that sanction push 500,000 Iraqi children to die, and she don't have problem with that.
No. Those people are absolute psychopaths. That we should bear that in mind. And the fact that the left-wing leaders, like in places like Poland, for example, want to become their someone says Ben Burgess is a self-described Menshevik. I have no problem with Menshevik or even social democrats being, part of a large network. Like, I just want to indicate it here. But the point that you're making is very. Sorry, just to finish my thought from before. Like the Polish left wanting to be, wanting to be like part of the establishment led by such psychopathic people like Madeleine Albright, John Bolton, Antony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, people who only saw, mayhem and destruction all over the world, and they leave a huge cloud of destruction and conflict wherever they go. The fact that the Polish left leaders want to actually be part of that club is just, mental for me. But that's, again, another show. I want to say that the point you're making is very important. About how everybody is now being perceived is being persuaded to think that the whole world supports Ukraine, that everybody is with Ukraine, everybody's with NATO, everybody is like, and they even say that there is memorabilia that you can find on in online stores, like t-shirts, for example, saying "Весь мир с нами," which means in Russian, like the whole world is with us, right? Which is supposedly with Ukraine, and there are some Ukraine signs there and stuff like that. Какой весь мир? Like, what are you talking about? What world? Like the European Union, Canada, United States, and Japan, and Australia. They are with you. And there's 198...
but even European Union is not united. 1 week ago,
right.
Orban, he win election, and the response of the European Commission is, Orban win election, he will not take money from European Union. It's
okay, yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean, even the European Union is not on it, but like on a macro scale, let's just say, okay, so the whole весь мир, the whole world is the European Union or Western Europe, okay? Western Europe, Scandinavia, Japan, Australia, Canada, and the United States. That's the whole world. Maybe New Zealand on top of everything. I'm not sure. But this is like, that's, except for that, there are many countries and many places, many governments that, as you said, they might not be supportive of the war and the invasion, obviously, but they will not go against Russia because they will not commit economic and political suicide. And, now what they're doing is they're trying, to pressure the countries to actually, the governments that are most important for them, or the countries that are most important for them, the territories and the economies that are most important for them, to support the Western position. And they carried out this coup in Pakistan to oust Imran Khan. But I don't know whether it's going to succeed finally. I mean, there seems to be a lot of, there seems to be some major mobilization, social mobilizations going on in defense of Imran Khan in Pakistan. And, they tried to pressure India, but they got the door slammed at their face. So, and, Brazil, you said it yourself, Brazil, like, Bolsonaro, who was supposed to be the puppet, the American puppet, he's actually, going against this. So things aren't working so great for them. And I think that we should be able to understand as sane, political observers, activists, journalists, whatever, we should be able to make that simple observation that this narrative, this Western propagandist, agitation is just that. I mean, they're just going to, spin around their propaganda around talking points that are favorable for them, but it doesn't mean that it's true. It's just like, look at the facts, inform yourself to the extent that you can, and you still can to a large extent. So I think, and I hope, again, this is an optimistic kind of observation for the end of the discussion. I hope that more and more people are going to be seeing through that, because it's so rampant and it's so obvious and it's so ostentatious on the part of the West that, it's so difficult for people, who have this kind of intellectual and political flexibility. It's so obvious that it's so easy to notice. And I'm hoping that, the more active parts of the public opinion in the West is also going to start seeing through that.
Okay, thank you, Boyan.
Thanks.